Good afternoon and welcome back, ladies, gents and Pikachus, to another analysis and breakdown of the Quran of the Muslims. Yes, we are back once again to break this thing down verse by verse into factual, logical statements in English so that you and I can understand who or what is Allah, what does he mean by the contents of his book here, and more importantly for us, how does this affect us in our lives today as non-believers. So, as I always do before I start, I'm going to kindly ask you, if you wish to fact check me or any of the things that I'm about to say, please first buy and read one of these. An Arabic only Quran, not an English one. Don't use Quran.com or the Google translated novelization because they are not accurate to the words of Allah. Allah says he only speaks in Arabic like this. This is the only word of Allah. The other ones he says are the work of Satan, so don't use them or you'll be an infidel, plus you'll be wrong. So, once you've done that and fact checked me by this thing here, you will recognise everything I'm about to say to you now from my notes is 100% true of the words of Allah Akbar and what Muslims believe today. So, let's carry on where we left off. And where we left off is we're in the book of Al-Nisa, which is women and children. We went through jihad punishments, how we don't like the Christians or Christ because they're scary and bad. Now we've just got past the bit about how the Jews are also bad, but it's okay because they're deceived and they are tricked with the false Jesus, Isa. And we're going to carry on from there. So, where we were was verse 162, and that is where we're going to be picking up from now. So let's get started. 162. But the men of firm knowledge and the true Muslims will accept full belief of what has been sent down to you here, and what has been sent to you before you did arrive. Those who pray only to Allah, give zakat, which is charities, to his mosques, and believe in the end times genocidal prophecy will gain his great reward. End of verse. So, if we break it down, what is he saying here? Well, he's saying, but... So even though he's just told you the bit about the Jews are evil, the Christians are evil, everyone else is evil, especially the Christians though, because, you know, if you become a Christian, you won't be forgiven, and you'll never come back to his guidance. Which makes it sound like he's not going to let you come back to his guidance, but he's lying. Once again, what he means is, once you have found salvation through our Lord Jesus Christ, and you have read the Bible and accepted yourself as a Christian, you ain't never coming back, because you'll know everything else written in the Quran is complete and utter nonsense, and life is so much better as a Christian. That's the real reason why you won't be coming back. It's nothing to do with Allah and his nonsense. So that's why he's saying that. But the men of firm knowledge and the Muslims will accept full belief in what has been sent down to you here, as in the Quran of the Muslims, and before you did arrive. You know, because most of it was written before you arrived. O Muslim child, says the mother, because we're teaching the children this. Those who pray only to Allah, i.e. not in Isa, son of Allah, who he's just told you didn't really matter anyway, and give money to his mosques, that's very important, Allah wants your money so he can pay for the jihad, and believe in the end times genocidal prophecy will get his great reward. So we know the end times genocidal prophecy is what he thinks will happen once the jihad has been completed by the application of the children when they grow up, against the war against the non-believers such as yourself, me and our families. Then and only then will you gain his great reward, which I'll remind you is dying as a martyr in the jihad and then appearing in the paradise when it's created, when all the Jews and Christians, agnostics, apostates, pagans, atheists, Sikhs and Buddhists are all dead in the ground. And then you will get 72 virgins. Way, 72 virgins. We love the idea of that, says the Muslim children. And it must be noted that I don't think the women are going to really care too much about this because, you know, most of them have the FGM, female genital mutilation, meaning they can't enjoy sex for their whole lives anyway. So why would they care about virgins, men in any sexual sense? Only young men are going to care about 72 virgins, and it's because they don't understand why virgins are prized. And they just think, well, I'm a virgin, 72 female virgins, way, lots of sex for me in the afterlife. And that's why Allah is using 72 virgins to sell them the idea that actually killing complete strangers in an immoral war sent by a complete fiction, i.e. Satan, is a moral thing to do. You're going to get 72 virgins if you do it. Must be good, right? That's what this means. And so we move on to 163. Surely to you we reveal this, as we did Noah and the prophets before him. We even revealed to Abraham and his sons and the tribes of Esau and David, and we gave them their scriptures. End of verse. Now, this one makes me laugh. Surely to you we did reveal this. So he's saying, it's right. We're revealing it to you because it's true, O Muslim child. It's definitely true. It's definitely 100% true. I think it's true. It's probably true. Most of it's true. Some of it's not true. Most of it's probably not true. It's actually not true. It's actually a complete load of nonsense, is what he's not saying, but that's how he's making it sound. So he's trying to barter with the child's emotions here by saying it's definitely true, surely it's true. And to prove that it's true, we even gave it to Noah and his prophets, Noah of the Noah's Ark prophets, even though Noah's Ark isn't in this book. So he's referring to an earlier scripture, the Torah, which is where we find Noah and the Noah's Ark story. So it must be true because Torah is what Allah's telling the Muslim child through the mum, which is a bit odd, considering he just said the Jews and Christians are evil, and that's what they believe. I see what he's doing. He's trying to build the profile of Jesus Christ, son of Allah, Isa, even though he's dead and he doesn't matter because he was only a human, because if anyone mentions Jesus, they're then going to think, oh, I know that guy, he's in the Quran, rather than they're thinking of real Christ. He goes on. We revealed them also to Abraham and his sons and the tribes of Esau and David, and we gave them their scriptures. So once again, Allah is saying, we revealed all this stuff before. We gave it to Abraham. He did not give it to Abraham. Abraham never had either the Torah, the Gospels, or the Quran. And we know this from Allah's own writings in the Quran of the Muslims, because he said, and I quote, I am appearing to Abraham in order to teach him the way of things in the future, and he will have to pray to me and make a covenant. Because he doesn't have scriptures, he's going to have to make a covenant with me, Allah, in the book, because he doesn't have these writings, so I'm going to have to appear to him and make him promise that all his sons will be Muslims. And that's what happens in the Abraham story in here. Sorry, it's falling apart even worse. So if we break it down, the reason he's saying this is to try and convince this child, this is definitely true, it's definitely 100% true, trust me, bro. And the reason he's having to do that is because Christians have turned up preaching the truth of the Gospels of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, and he knows his Muslim children, despite the fact they're not allowed to say so, and they can't openly have questions, doubts, or hesitations towards Islam, their eyes are firmly fixed upon Jesus Christ of Nazareth, and the Christians, who the Muslim children can see are having a great time, are richer and happier, and are not fearful. That's the main thing, because they're fearful of Christians. Even Allah has showed he's scared of Christ. Christians aren't scared of anything. And the Muslim children are looking over going, we want to be like those guys. Even though we see them being that good and we're not allowed to say, we have to hesitantly run to our jihadi deaths via Allah's commands. In our heads in secret, we're thinking about these guys. And then this is my favourite bit actually, the last thing he says in 163 is, we revealed them to Abraham and his sons and to the tribes of Esau. Now, what he's referring to there by saying tribes is the 12 tribes of Israel. But we know Esau wasn't Jewish. Esau was from Mecca, so he wasn't part of the tribes, and he certainly wasn't the progenitor of the tribes. The tribes were the sons of Jacob. So there's nothing to do with Allah's son, Jesus, son of Allah, Isa. And David, King David, i.e. a future king of Israel, hasn't even been born yet. In the story, obviously, when this was written, he'd already lived and died. And we gave them scriptures, right? David wasn't given any scriptures. Isa wasn't given any scriptures, apart from by Allah, but we know that's not true. Abraham and his sons weren't given any scriptures. They were the guys who wrote the most of the first scriptures, because it's the story of them, written after the fact. So we know when he says, surely to you we reveal this, he's lying. Thusly we know once again Allah is full of nonsense and should never be trusted, certainly not when he's writing you a book. O Muslim children, just so you know. And we move on to 164. And we sent many messengers whose story you did hear, and also messengers who you did not know their story. Allah was in full speaking voice to Moses. End of verse. So, We're jumping around a bit here, Allah. Allah! Allah, mate, can you get dressed and just join me over here for a second, will you? That's right, put your cover back on. Allah, why are you talking about all the Hebrew prophets as if they're yours, but then going from Abraham, Isa, and David, who is effectively 3 different eras of time? They didn't live in the same time. Why are you going from them to the messengers you do know, and then going back to Moses? Because Moses obviously wasn't a Muslim, even though you claim that he was. Why are you saying now you're in full voice speaking these verses of Isa and David to Moses when Moses was dead by the time Isa and David were alive? I'll wait. Come on. No, I'm not taking an... He's in a huff now. He don't want to speak to you anymore. So, the reason I'm asking him this is because I want to demonstrate that Allah has no idea about the flow of time. So, who else doesn't have any idea about the flow of time that we know about? Well, when people are very drunk, when people are high on certain types of drugs, and when people are suffering from paranoid delusions. Those are the 3 groups of people we know in the current day who might lose track of the flow of time and think that their future and their past and their present is all happening at once. Now, I'm not saying Allah is a drunk, drug-addled, paranoid maniac, but he might be. He doesn't say he's not. So that's what that means in my interpretation. When he's speaking in full voice to Moses, telling him of Isa and the tribes and David, who are like all spread throughout time and didn't happen at the same time, I think we know via factual verified history and earlier scriptures that is a load of nonsense and could only happen in a delusion from Allah to Muhammad. And we know from the hadith and earlier videos we have covered this, Muhammad was often bewitched by demons and did suffer delusions and think he did things when Aisha and the other companions of his knew for a fact he didn't, and that's in the hadith. So I think when Allah is speaking in full voice of Moses, of David, of Isa and the tribes, it's just Muhammad having a delusion, and so we know this is not true. And we move along. 165. The messenger's purpose was to bring you the good news and also warnings, so that after this, the people would have no more excuses against Allah and Muhammad, and hold him dearest to them, for Allah is the wisest. End of verse. So I think if we break this down, the messenger's purpose is talking about Muhammad. Muhammad wrote this down for Allah, and was the one who brought it to the Muslims. So, the messenger's purpose means Muhammad's purpose was to bring you, the reader, the child who is being taught by the mother, the Muslim. Muhammad's purpose was to bring you good news and also warnings, which is kind of weird. Just kind of weird how that's cropped up now in the Quran and not before. Bearing in mind in the last episode, I was speculating that Jesus was now a prominent threat to Islam, i.e. the Crusades are just about to start, and Allah and Muhammad are terrified of this, and they know Christ is just on the horizon. Which, by the way, there wouldn't be if it was a flat earth like Allah tells you, so we know also there's no flat earth, because there's a horizon, i.e. the world dips round. But anyway, when he says he's bringing you good news and also warnings, that's very similar to an earlier book, the Holy Bible, which is called the Good News Testament of Jesus Christ. The Gospel is the good news, and also in here is Proverbs and Prophecies, which is the warnings. So isn't that just the thing? Now Allah has had his head turned by Jesus Christ and is too scared to mention him by name, so he has invented Isa, Jesus Christ, son of Allah, who he calls Isa, so that he can actually talk about a Jesus of a kind without mentioning the real Jesus, because he's scared of him. And the first thing he wants to bring to your attention, O Muslim children, through the teachings of the mother, after you've done the jihad bit, is the good news and the warnings. Which is a clear demonstration that he is now, as he is writing this, sat there with a copy of the Gospels or someone who knows the Gospels and is communicating with them, and he is copying down bits of the Gospels and then tweaking them so that instead of Jesus they're now going to say Allah. And thus I'm going to make a prophecy for the rest of the Quran readings. Now Allah's going to be very concerned with being the truth. That's what he's going to start calling himself. I'm going to say that now. That's what he will steal off Jesus. He will steal off Jesus, the divinity and the truth that Jesus has. And so we carry on. And then he finishes that verse by saying, the reason he does this is so that the people will have no more excuses against Allah and Muhammad. So obviously they've been making excuses why they don't accept this, such as it's nonsense, it's really difficult to follow, it's conflicting and it's impossible to do it well, and it makes you miserable and it causes war. Those are going to be the excuses. But no, the messenger's purpose was to bring you good news and warnings and to make sure you have no further excuses to ignore this, the Quran of the Muslims, the commands of Allah, and be going towards Christianity. That's what he's saying there. For Allah is the wisest. So just in case you didn't know, O Muslim children, this is the wise path, not that Jesus guy. He's not wise. I told you, Isa died. He was just a normal guy. Wasn't that great? Didn't do anything. It was me, Allah, in the book who did it. Please believe me. Please believe me. It's definitely true. Trust me, bro, is the vibe. That's what this means. And so we move on to 166. And Allah himself is the witness. Allah himself is the witness of what he did send down to you. He sent his knowledge down to you with his angels, who also were witnesses. And Allah is always best and sufficient witness to you. End of verse. So, if we break this down, but Allah himself is the witness. He's saying, I saw it myself. And I'm God, says Allah in the book. I'm definitely God, truthfully. This is definitely true. Trust me, bro. I witnessed it myself. I saw it with my own two eyes. Says Allah. Don't believe me? Well, I sent it down with my angels as well. Surely you believe in the angels, says Allah to the Muslim child through the mother. So even though the child hasn't even gone out into the world yet and seen how much of a nonsense book this is, Allah is already pleading with the children, please believe me, it's Allah. I saw it myself. And if you don't believe me, angels, they also saw it. Then he finishes off by saying, Allah is always best and sufficient witness. Now, why would he have to say always? Why would he have to say, I am always the best and most sufficient witness? Well, because he's going to find times in his life, the Muslim child this is, where Allah has made mistakes and what he says doesn't come out to be true. And he has obviously made tons of really poor prophecies that haven't happened at all. And the opposite thing has happened in the past. And although he's just given you a load of excuses why that is, you know, he's got good news for you now, new good news, i.e. in the New Testament, since Isa. He is the witness to this, his angels are witness to this, and they're always going to be the best witness. So don't be listening to those Christians. That's what I'm taking from this. This is more begging and pleading and excuses to the Muslim child to not take up the call of Jesus Christ of Nazareth and the Gospels, the truth of Christianity, which is obviously a very attractive prospect for the Muslim child, despite that he's not allowed to say, otherwise, off with your head, you're dead, Muhammad will get you. If you do that, that's what this means. And we move on to the final verse, 167. For all who became infidels by it and prevented Allah's way, others will find it. Indeed went off far astray from Allah. End of verse, end of reading. So, we know he's ending it on this for the specific purpose of saying to the children, men of knowledge who are firm in Allah and who accept all his truth and his prophet Muhammad and the end times genocidal prophecy, and then the implication is the jihad as well. They're the ones who are good, who give money to the mosque, who go to the jihad and believe in the end times thing that he made up. That's good Muslims. Then he says, surely you'll believe this just like Noah did, just like Abraham and his sons did, just like Jacob and his sons did, just like Moses did, just like Jesus and Mary did, even though we know none of those guys actually had this and believed any of it. And actually Jesus and Mary weren't around in Mecca to have been there to see it because Jesus and Mary were in Nazareth. Abraham probably never even went to Mecca. Jacob and his sons definitely never went to Mecca. And all this is happening in Mecca, which is where the Quran was written. And that reminds me, the bit in the last episode where he said, I renew the covenant with the Israelites, and he said he was on the top of he raised himself above Mount Sinai. By this point, Israel was being created, and Israel and Sinai are like hundreds of miles away. So Allah does it again. He trips himself up in his own rubbish and nonsense. He's declaring a covenant to the Israelites here on the top of Mount Sinai, while the Israelites are like miles away in Israel, completely ignoring that he's doing that. And that's why, in the end, in summary of this whole page, we know Allah is a witness to himself. His angels even saw it. It's definitely true. And the reason he has to say this to the Muslim children is because there is mistake after mistake after mistake after contradiction after contradiction. None of this stuff is real. Anyone who reads any other books or has any other eyewitness testimonies or knows anyone else who has seen anything of the world is going to know. The Quran of the Muslims is a load of nonsense, provably so, demonstratably so, which is why he's only written it in Arabic. Because the only people who are ever going to believe this are tiny children in Arabic countries, because by law and by culture they're not allowed to have any other books, Torah, Gospels or any other faiths, and they're not likely to meet these guys or have spoken to them before Allah's got into their head and said 72 virgins if you do it, jihad, 72 virgins if you do it, death by beheading and burning in hell forever if you do not. Threats of violence to push them towards it, 72 virgins to make them do it. And that's why he ends on, for all those who become infidels and prevented Allah's way, and other people from finding it and following it indeed went far astray from Allah, because they're over there doing the Christianity and being happy and prosperous and wealthy and peaceful and making the Muslims very, very jealous, and Allah. So, that's the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed that and you learnt something. God bless you all, and I will see you, lovely people, in the next one. Bye now. Trust me, bro, says Allah to everybody. But we don't trust you, bro, we know. The Quran and Islam is a false doctrine, and that's the end of it for today. So, I'll see you back here tomorrow. In the meantime, have a lovely evening, God bless you all, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.